Fire consumes the grand estate as a voice cries out for someone named Ricador. A pink-haired girl weeps over Ricador, a white-haired boy, desperately pleading for him to awaken. A sudden, wet cough sounds as Ricador, eyes dimming, weakly utters the name of the girl, Regressed. A heavy, ominous step sounds as an intruder with a bloodied sword looms over the terrified Regressed. The black-haired man unsheathes his blade with a sharp swing as Regressed pants in sheer terror. Regress's teeth grit with a sharp sound as she realizes her simple birthday wish has turned into a nightmare. A single drawing of a birthday cake begins to blaze, symbolizing her ruined hopes for a family celebration. 10 years ago at the Arachne estate, the sound of falling water echoes as a man asks for news. A doctor somberly informs the man that his daughter-in-law has died, leaving behind a newborn baby. The news becomes even more dire as it is revealed the infant girl possesses absolutely no detectable mana. A low, threatening rumble sounds as the red-eyed man absorbs the shocking truth about his powerless grandchild. The narrative shifts to the legacy of House Arachne, a family defined by its members' immense magical abilities. Archmond Arachne, the red-eyed head of the family, is introduced as the pinnacle of their magical lineage. The legacy continued through his son, Fëanor, and 3 grandsons, all of whom were born with formidable powers. Even distant relatives of the main bloodline were consistently born with impressive and varied magical gifts. Regressed Arachne explains that she was the only member of the entire family born without any power. Because of her lack of magic, she was hidden away in the annex like a non-existent ghost. A soft scritch sounds as the young Regressed draws, wondering if her father avoids her because of hatred. She suddenly flips her drawing with a quick flip, hoping to show her grandfather her latest work. Regressed presents her drawing to Archmond, timidly asking if she might join the family for dinner tonight. Archmond turns toward her with a cold, piercing gaze that offers no warmth or familial affection. He lets out a harsh, angry yell, causing her to flinch as he scolds her for leaving her annex. Archmond forbids her from ever leaving her quarters again while guards drag the sobbing, apologizing girl away. Left alone, the small girl slumps against the door, abandoned by the family she yearns to join. A series of soft, heartbroken sniffling sounds fill the room as Regressed cries herself to sleep in bed. She concludes that her family must hate her because she is a useless person without any magical talent. She flinches as she hears the maids snickering nearby about her getting in trouble with the Duke. The maids continue whispering, claiming her lack of power brings shame and damage to the Arachne reputation. Regressed overhears them calling her a curse on the family as she huddles under her blankets, weeping. She cries out in silent misery, wondering if her perceived curse is why her father never visits her. She holds a drawing of a cake, noting that today is her lonely 10th birthday. From her dark, cold room, she gazes at the distant, brightly lit castle where her family dines together. She experiences a fleeting vision of a happy birthday celebration with her family before reality sets in. A sudden, sharp crackle sounds, waking Regressed as she blinks and notices a strange warmth in her room. Regressed jolts upright and screams in terror upon realizing that her bedroom is rapidly being engulfed by fire. A loud burst sounds as the door flies open, revealing a hallway filled with roaring, destructive flames. Her legs tremble as she stands before the fire, desperately calling out into the empty hallway for help. Heartbreak joins her terror as she wonders if her family has truly fled the fire and abandoned her. Another crackle sounds as the structure burns, leaving the panic girl with no idea how to survive. A sudden, firm grab surprises her as a boy catches her arm and scolds her for staying behind. The white-haired boy, Ricador, demandingly asks why she is still here while the entire house is on fire. Surprised to see Ricador, she listens as he urgently questions why she has not already escaped the blaze. Regressed explains she was alone when the fire started, shocking Ricador with the revelation of her abandonment. Ricador stares at her in disbelief, confirming with a sad nod that no one came to rescue her. His teeth grit with a sharp sound as his eyes burn with rage at their family's cruel negligence. He gives her hand a reassuring squeeze and tells her to listen very carefully to what he says. Ricador reveals the Imperial army has invaded and their grandfather is currently fighting them to buy them time. He suspects a betrayal and insists they must flee immediately, pulling her along as they begin to rush. They dash into the dark woods under a full moon, moving as fast as their young legs can carry them. A sudden rustle in the bushes stops them. Ricador pulls Regressed back and tells her to be silent. A series of huffing sounds echo as the Duke's aide, Oberon, expresses relief at finally finding the children. A sudden step sounds as Ricador orders Oberon to take Regressed away while he joins their grandfather. Fear fills the pink-haired girl as she asks her brother why he will not come with them. Heartbroken tears fall from her red eyes as she worries about the danger he might face during battle. Ricador offers a confident smile, assuring the young girl that his immense strength will keep him safe. A whoosh sounds as Ricador promises to find her, leaving Reyersha wondering why he would risk so much. A single glowing thought emphasizes that his brave devotion stems from the simple fact they are family. A soft clasp sounds as Ricador takes her hand, smiling warmly before they are forced to part. Reyersha questions her worthiness, fearing her lack of magic makes her ashamed to the family name. Gripping a blade tightly, the girl laments her status as a cursed child who brings only misfortune. A sudden wet splatter sounds as blood stains Risha's face, signaling a horrific and unexpected turn of events. A wet cough sounds as Ricador is struck from behind by the very person they trusted most. Ricador begins to wobble, a blade protruding from his chest, while Reyersha stares in absolute frozen shock. The white-haired boy turns in agony, gasping out Oberon's name as his strength rapidly begins to fade. A sharp swish sounds as the black-haired Oberon prepares his next move, his face cold and bloody. A heavy plop sounds as Reyersha screams for Ricador while the traitorous aide offers a hollow apology. Another wet cough sounds as the dying Ricador uses his final breath to plead for Reyersha's escape. A firm step sounds as Oberon coldly confirms his betrayal, admitting he is the family's true traitor. A heavy step sounds as Reyersha cries out, unable to believe their loyal servant would murder them. Blood begins to drip from the sword as Oberon blames Reyersha's dormant powers for the family's downfall. A dull thump sounds as the villain claims Reyersha's very existence brought ruin upon the House Arachne. The sounds of a roaring blaze fill the air as Oberon blames her family's protection for their end. An ominous step sounds as Oberon looms over the girl, questioning her father's sacrifice for her sake. The black-haired man bellows in rage, demanding to know how their grand legacy could fall to ruin. A heavy step sounds as the terrified girl wonders if all this destruction is truly her fault. A metallic swing sounds as Oberon prepares the final blow, declaring it far too late for repairs. A violent slash sounds as the House Arachne is declared dead, reflected in Reyersha's tear-filled dying eye. A sudden jolt sounds as a younger Reyersha screams and wakes up in her childhood bedroom. A loud crash sounds as she falls, recalling the sensation of a blade through her small chest. She examines her uninjured body, questioning if the entire nightmare was merely a terrifying, vivid dream. Confused by her surroundings, she stares at her small hands, noticing how much younger she is now. A soft squish sounds as she pinches her cheeks, confirming she is awake and physically present. Staring into the mirror, the pink-haired girl sees herself as the young child she was years ago. A crisp knock sounds as someone approaches her door, interrupting her frantic and confused internal thoughts. A loud swing sounds as maids enter the room, announcing that it is time for her to wake. The maid notices her early awakening, while a chibi Reyersha experiences a moment of extreme awkwardness. A sharp clatter sounds as Reyersha timidly thanks the maid for placing her breakfast on the table. A quick shut sounds as Reyersha recognizes the maids who were once dismissed for their criminal behavior. A soft glum sound accompanies her realization that she has been served bread containing dangerous peanuts. A light pull sounds as she meticulously removes the peanuts she knows will make her deathly ill. She remembers her past illness, confirming that the events unfolding are identical to her original life. A soft nom sounds as she eats the bread, certain now that she has traveled back in time. A roaring blaze sounds as she foresees her family's ruin repeating on her 10th birthday. She reflects on her lonely life and cold father, assuming she was destined to be forever alone. A gentle clasp sounds as she recalls Ricador's kindness, the only family member who ever cared. Looking at her reflection, she remembers the comfort of being called family by her older brother. Inspired by his words, the pink-haired girl resolves to take action because they are her family. A frantic turn sounds as the young girl wonders how someone as powerless as her can help. A sudden flash sounds as a bright idea strikes her, finally giving her a path forward. Reyersha declares her special mission to leave the castle forever to ensure her family stays safe. Reyersha reflects on Oberon's hatred and hopes her departure prevents his future betrayal of their house. A series of quick movements sound as the small girl gathers valuable items to fund her survival. A heavy creak sounds as the girl struggles with a bag she finds unexpectedly heavy for her. A firm clasp sounds as the pink-haired girl prepares to leave, her face set with grim determination. A soft whoosh sounds as Reyersha marches toward the village located just outside the dark forest. A series of soft drops sound as bread and a bracelet fall unnoticed from the girl's bag. A light clink sounds as a gloved hand retrieves the lost flower bracelet from the forest floor. A soft mumble sounds as the blonde man with a monocle watches the girl venture into the woods. A rhythmic step sounds as a mysterious figure follows the girl deep into the moonlit, shadowed forest. A heavy step sounds as the panting girl begins to realize she has lost her way. A loud da-dun sounds as Reyersha stands paralyzed, realizing she is truly lost in the dark. A series of shakes sound as the trembling girl tries to convince herself that she is brave. Ryersha experiences a moment of sadness, remembering how she previously relied on Ricardo's protection in the forest. A series of drips sound as a massive, multi-eyed bear-like beast looms silently behind the small girl. Ryersha gazes upward with a confused expression, wondering if it has suddenly started raining in the forest. A deep growl sounds as the terrifying monster reveals its blood-stained fangs and glowing yellow eyes. The massive, three-eyed bear lets out a deafening roar as it prepares to strike the defenseless girl. A soft whoosh sounds as the girl falters, her face pale with terror upon seeing the beast. A loud smash sounds as a giant claw strikes the ground, narrowly missing the screaming, cowering girl. Trembling in absolute terror, Ryersha begs the beast to leave her alone while desperately screaming for help. A loud shout of Ricador's name sounds, echoing Ryersha's desperate and hopeless plea for her brother's arrival. A soft flutter sounds as birds scatter in fear from the loud, violent commotion in the forest. A rhythmic step sounds as someone walks across the carpeted hallway of the Grand Arachne family castle. Ricador looks around the corridor with a worried expression, questioning why the annex is so strangely quiet. Ricardo experiences a moment of disbelief, wondering if this isolated annex is truly where his sister lives. A formal introduction confirms the white-haired boy is Ricador Arachne, the second son of Lord Fernor. A loud kneel sounds as the startled maids bow to Ricador, who demands to know Ryersha's whereabouts. Ricador turns his gaze toward the nervous maids, his face cold and unyielding as he seeks answers. The maids dismissively claim Ryersha is hiding for attention, revealing they have not seen her since morning. A deep frown marks Ricador's face as his eyes sharpen with anger at the maids' obvious lies. Ricador sternly orders the maids not to lie, causing them to flinch in visible fear and guilt. A heavy step sounds as Ricador questions if they thought he was unaware of Ryersha's mistreatment.
A frantic rush sounds as a guard interrupts the confrontation to report finding traces of the girl.
A piece of Ryersha's flower bracelet is presented, found near the entrance to the dangerous forest. Ricador is visibly startled by the news, realizing his sister has entered the treacherous forest of beasts. A loud rush sounds as Ricador immediately sprints out, desperate to find Ryersha before it's too late. Gritting his teeth in frustration, Ricador curses as he rushes toward the forest to save his sister. A rhythmic dash sounds as the young girl continues to run frantically through the dark shadow trees. Panting heavily, Ryersha cries out in desperation, questioning why she returned to the past just to die. A soft shut sounds as the girl closes her eyes, lamenting her failed attempt to protect her family. A sudden blaze sounds as magic energy erupts, and a voice commands the girl to duck immediately. Ricador stands heroically with a drawn sword, his red eyes glowing as he faces the forest monster. A firm grab sounds as Ricador catches Ryersha, angrily questioning why she would enter such a place. A long woo sounds as Ricador scolds her for her recklessness, emphasizing the extreme danger of beasts. A loud graw sounds as the massive beast roars in fury, its mouth agape for another strike. A sudden jolt sounds as the monster lunges at the siblings, its giant claws ready to crush them. A quick whip sounds as Ricador prepares to strike, urgently telling his sister to be very careful. Ricador orders Ryersha to run away immediately, but she hesitates, terrified of leaving him alone. Ricador bellows at her to run one last time as the beast prepares another deadly, lunging attack. A deafening growl sounds as the three-eyed monster roars, its giant mouth dripping with hunger and rage.
Ryersha's eyes widen as a haunting reflection of her brother's original bloody death fills her mind.
She desperately holds the dying Ricador, fearing her presence has caused his tragic end once again. A magical glow emanates from her small hand as she refuses to let her brother die. Ryersha clings to her brother with fierce determination, vowing never to lose him to fate again. A sudden float sounds as glowing bubbles lift the two children safely away from the beast. Rhythmic pops sound as the bubbles strike the monster's face, effectively blinding the massive three-eyed bear. A sharp swish sounds as the bear recoils in agony, its yellow eyes shut from the impact. A heavy thud sounds as the monster collapses, and Ricador stands protectively over his small sister. Ricador looks down at her with worry, softly checking if she is unharmed after the magical surge. The pink-haired girl stands alone in the bright forest, her face blank as she processes her power. A soft, dazed sound accompanies Ryersha while magical bubbles continue to float around her small, still form. A soft, teary sound reflects her deep emotion as she realizes they have survived the forest's dangers. A loud hug sounds as she lunges at Ricador, sobbing his name in a fit of relief. A soft sniffle sounds while Ricador complains about her mess, though she is simply glad he's alive. Everything comes to a pause as the siblings share a quiet moment surrounded by blooming forest flowers. A gentle pat sounds as Ricador comforts her, dismissing her fears by calling her a little dummy. He promises her that he is strong and won't die, providing her with much-needed comforting reassurance. Ricador kneels to meet her gaze, smiling warmly as he holds her face with deep brotherly affection. Reersha beams with joy while holding his hand, agreeing that her older brother is truly powerful. The girl offers a quiet thanks to her brother for coming to her rescue in the forest. A soft plop sounds as Reersha suddenly falls asleep, leaving her brother puzzled by her earlier words. A relieved pew sounds as Ricador realizes she has just drifted off from exhaustion after using magic. He gazes at her sleeping face, deeply confused by what she meant by losing him again. Rosinante suddenly appears behind them, observing that the young lady's special powers have finally and truly awakened. The blonde aide politely offers to escort the siblings back to the castle after their intense battle. Rhythmic steps sound as Rosinante approaches, while Ricador suspiciously questions the timing of his sudden arrival. Ricardo glares while holding the lost bracelet, accusing the aide of watching them throughout the entire ordeal. A soft smile sounds as Rosinante admits he saw her enter and left clues for Ricador's benefit. A quick whip sounds as Ricador asks why he didn't intervene, but Rosinante cites his official role. He explains that his current demotion prevents him from directly interfering with the internal affairs of the house. Looking at the sleeping girl, he notes that these house restrictions will fortunately be lifted very soon. A joyful ha-ha sounds as the aide denies using Ricador, despite the boy's sharp and angry glare. A sharp tisk sounds as Ricador reacts to the suggestion that he was merely worried about her. A quick turn sounds as Ricador demands the arrogant servants be removed from the annex immediately. Rosinante agrees with a sly smile, noting that they have a lot of work ahead of them. Reersha remains peacefully asleep, her small face illuminated by a soft, gentle, and magical glow. The girl's red eyes slowly flutter open as she finally wakes up from her long, unconscious state. Looking around a grand and unfamiliar bedroom, she wonders about her current location and what has happened. Reersha spots an unfamiliar woman and timidly asks the blue-haired stranger for her identity. Sona introduces herself as Reersha's new personal knight, pledging to serve the young girl from now. Confused by the sudden name, the pink-haired girl tries to repeat it but stumbles slightly. A sudden gasp sounds as Reersha corrects her mistake while Sona kindly tells her it is okay. A soft whip sounds as Sona serves her a glass of refreshing water to help her recover. Sona reveals she was unconscious for 2 days and asks if she remembers her power's sudden awakening. Sona identifies as a distant relative, sharing a common bond of power with the young Reersha. Rhythmic gulps sound as Reersha drinks, secretly wondering how she used her power if she cannot remember. A sharp gasp sounds as she asks if Ricador is safe, learning he returned with the aide. Sona confirms that Rosinante has been officially reinstated as the aide to Lord Fernor as of yesterday. Sona adds that her father is also returning from the border now that her power is active. Risha sits quietly in her large bed, contemplating the news that her father is finally coming home. Pink-haired Reersha's eyes widen as she hears her father is finally returning to the castle. She imagines a white-haired knight in silver armor, hoping to finally see her father soon. A warm memory surfaces of a white-haired man holding Reersha in a gentle, loving embrace. Sona looks at Reersha with a soft expression, noting how much the girl missed her father. A loud rumble sounds as Reersha's stomach growls, and Sona kindly mentions that food is coming. A sudden jolt sounds as Sona reveals that the girl will soon meet her stern grandfather. A sharp clench sounds as Reersha grips her blanket, fearing her grandfather's long-standing hatred for her. Sona leans in, reassuring Reersha that things are far more complicated than they appear to be. Reersha looks down with a somber expression as she contemplates the difficult family meeting ahead. A quick knock sounds as maids arrive with the meal, and Sona invites them inside immediately. A soft rattle sounds as cheerful new maids enter, presenting a delicious-looking cake to the girl. The maids promise to serve Reersha, confirming that the cruel annex servants will never return again. A quick flip sounds as the maids offer pudding, encouraging the hungry girl to eat her fill. A soft brighten sounds while Reersha's face lights up with pure joy at the wonderful meal. A quiet nom sounds as Reersha happily enjoys a spoonful of her long-awaited sweet dessert. The room fills with laughter as Reersha enjoys her meal alongside Sona and the friendly maids. A sudden pause sounds as Reersha remembers her past as the child who destroyed her home. A soft shalala sounds as the maids finish dressing Reersha in a beautiful ornate yellow gown. Dressed in her finest clothes, Reersha looks remarkably elegant as she prepares for her official introduction. The maids let out a loud kia, exclaiming that the young lady is absolutely and super adorable. A loud kia sounds as a maid compares her to an angel, shocking the disciplined blue-haired knight. Sona sternly reminds the maids to maintain their manners while the girl looks on with surprise. A soft smile sounds as Reersha kindly tells the staff that she doesn't mind their enthusiasm. Sona asks if Reersha remembers her etiquette training, and the girl prepares to demonstrate her curtsy. Reersha performs a perfect, graceful curtsy, lifting her yellow skirt with focused and careful precision. A soft ahem sounds while Sona and the maids struggle to contain their overwhelming emotional reactions. Sona praises Reersha's performance, though the girl worries when she learns Sona won't be accompanying her. A sharp clack sounds as the heavy door begins to open, signaling the arrival of someone new. A quick peek sounds as Reersha spots a figure, wondering who has come to fetch her. A heavy thump sounds as a wave of sudden terror washes over Reersha upon seeing the newcomer. A sharp clack sounds as a black-haired man enters, formally greeting the young lady with a bow. The man introduces himself as Oberon, the aide to the Duke, causing Reersha to recoil in shock. A loud creak sounds as Oberon opens the doors, offering to escort her to see his grace. A rhythmic step sounds as Reersha follows the tall, black-haired aide through the long castle hallway. A quick glance sounds as Reersha wonders exactly when Oberon began his plan to betray her family. Reersha recalls a memory of Oberon as a loyal servant, questioning why he eventually turned against them. A sudden turn sounds as Oberon stops and looks back at the small pink-haired girl behind him. A loud huh sounds as Reersha panics when Oberon asks if she has something to say. A frantic scramble sounds as Reersha blurts out that he is amazing, leaving the aide visibly confused. Reersha praises his long devotion to the family, and the stoic man simply agrees with her statement. A soft fidget sounds while Reersha nervously holds her necklace, trying to hide her internal, frantic thoughts. Oberon turns away, noting that the castle has always felt like a true home to him. A sharp grip sounds as Reersha clutches her dress, wondering if she should investigate Oberon's true intentions. A rhythmic step sounds as Reersha mentions her awakened power, receiving a calm congratulations from the aide. Oberon looks forward with a stern expression as the small girl follows closely in his shadow. Oberon thinks to himself that House Arachne will finally be safe now that her power is active. The two continue walking through the grand, sunlit corridor toward the ultimate meeting with her grandfather. Oberon pauses to address the girl, but Reersha is too focused on the impending and scary encounter. Reersha panics internally, desperate to avoid any specific questions that might reveal her secret knowledge of destiny. They finally reach the destination, where the white-haired grandfather stands silently, gazing out of a large window. The white-haired duke looks back with a sharp, red-eyed gaze at his granddaughter. A nervous Reersha wavers as she timidly greets her stern grandfather for the first time. A sudden trip sounds while the young girl loses her footing in her new shoes. A loud crash sounds as Reersha falls face first onto the carpeted floor of the office. Reersha sniffles in embarrassment, lamenting her failed etiquette practice, while the Duke dismisses all formalities. The Duke stares down at the small girl and commands her to demonstrate her power. Reersha is taken aback, wondering if she must really use her magic right here and now. A soft clasp and race sound as she prepares her hands to manifest her unique magic. Rhythmic badum sounds echo in Reersha's chest as she prays for her bubbles to appear. A quiet shut sounds while the girl squeezes her eyes closed, desperately pleading for a miracle. Silence fills the grand office as the Duke and Oberon watch the motionless, pink-haired girl. A sudden flinch sounds as the Duke gives up, coldly telling Reersha she can leave. The Duke orders Oberon to take Reersha away, and the aide obediently accepts the command. A sharp grab sounds as Oberon takes her arm, while Reersha panics about losing her family. Reersha recalls the dark tragedy of her previous life, fearing history is about to repeat itself. A vision of an upside-down, dark world reflects the girl's growing internal fear and despair. A quick yank sounds as Reersha tries to stop Oberon, begging for one more chance. Rhythmic drip sounds fall from her hand as Reersha determines she must succeed this time. A soft float sounds as a single, large magical bubble begins to manifest in the air. Many floating sounds surround Reersha as countless bubbles fill the room while she weeps with effort. The grand office is transformed into a dreamlike space filled with glowing, iridescent magical bubbles. The Duke stands frozen in awe, completely surrounded by the manifestations of his granddaughter's rare power. A soft pop sounds as one of the magical bubbles touches the sleeve of the aide. Oberon's eyes widen as he realizes the mana vanished exactly where the bubble popped. A soft float sounds while the Duke asks Reersha if this is truly her awakened power. Reersha stands quietly amidst the floating bubbles, her face flushed with the exertion of her magic. The girl timidly confirms her power, fearing her grandfather will find the bubbles useless and scold her. A soft hum sounds as the Duke sighs, noting she lacks control over her mana. The girl's eyes widened in shock as her grandfather simply dismisses her to her room. Reersha is overwhelmed with relief, thanking her grandfather as she realizes she wasn't scolded. A rhythmic trot sounds as Oberon escorts Reersha out while the Duke watches her go. Once alone, the Duke tells Oberon he saw the immense potential of the girl's power. Oberon expresses his concern that such a powerful ability might eventually cause harm to Reersha.
The Duke mentions a long-forgotten oracle from the temple that dictated the family's harsh past. A dark narrative panel describes the unawakened potential that once threatened to tear the family apart. The prophecy warns that silver blood would blacken the empire, forcing the family to hide Reersha. A memory shows the Duke holding baby Reersha, protecting her from the imperial family's demands. To protect the girl, the Duke reveals he gave his son Fëanor to the empire instead. Fëanor stands at the cold border, having volunteered to buy time for his daughter to awaken. Oberon reminds the Duke that Lord Fëanor chose this path out of love for his child. The aide explains that despite his wife's death, Fëanor's love for Reersha remains absolute. The Duke looks somber, admitting that House Arachne is no longer the powerhouse it once was. Enemies and opportunistic relatives lurk in the shadows, waiting for the house to show weakness. Small Reersha walks alone through the massive hallway, unaware of the weight on her family. The Duke commands Oberon to maintain a constant protective watch over the young lady's safety. A majestic eagle soars high above the snowy peaks, carrying a message to the border. A loud whoosh sounds as the messenger bird glides over the fortified walls of the castle. A soft flutter sounds as the eagle lands on the arm of the white-haired knight. A quiet rustle sounds while Fëanor unties the scroll from the talons of the great bird. Fëanor reads the letter with a determined gaze, finally hearing news from his home castle. High upon the castle tower, an unseen voice remarks that there is finally some good news. Lord Fëanor gazes at a letter with a soft smile while thinking about his dear Reersha. A blonde-haired man with glasses gives a cheerful greeting to the young pink-haired lady. The man introduces himself as a tutor, and Reersha recognizes him as her father's aide. Rosinante offers to teach Reersha until Fëanor returns, asking to be addressed in a casual manner. A quick whip sounds as Rosinante hands a thick, leather-bound textbook to the young girl. A soft, smooth sounds while the book is revealed to be a beginner's guide for magic. Reersha holds the heavy tome close, looking up at her new tutor with wide, surprised eyes. Rosinante adjusts his glasses and asks if the young girl already knows how to read. A soft hesitate sounds while Reersha admits she can read a little despite lacking formal training. The girl explains she learned to read by studying the many picture books in the annex. A memory shows the young Reersha lying on the floor, happily immersed in an illustrated story. The open book displays colorful drawings of aquatic life alongside the written script of the empire. Rosinante expresses his genuine impression that the girl was able to teach herself such a skill. An ornate golden crest appears as the tutor discusses the unique special powers of the family. A silhouette of a hand reaches toward a radiant star, representing the family's magical heritage. The narration notes that direct descendants awaken at birth, while distant relatives take several years. Rosinante points out that Reersha's power was unusually late to awaken for a direct bloodline member. Reersha curiously asks if there are ever cases where a family member's power never awakens. A sudden turn sounds as the tutor asks why she is asking about such a possibility. Reersha looks down somberly, reflecting on how her power never appeared in her previous life. The small girl sits alone in a massive chair, highlighting her isolation and small stature. Rosinante decides that they have covered enough material for the first day of their lessons together. A soft bow sounds while the tutor dismisses the girl to enjoy the rest of her day. A rhythmic trot sounds as the blonde-haired man walks away, leaving Reersha to her thoughts. A quiet rustle sounds as the tutor reviews her progress, noting her remarkably high level of comprehension. A soft tilt sounds while the aide wonders why she lacked proper tutelage while in the annex. A light blue portfolio rests on a table, addressed specifically to the young lady, Reersha. A loud creak sounds as the girl's small hand pushes open a heavy, ornate library door. Reersha climbs a ladder in the Grand Library, searching for any information regarding the distant relatives. The girl determines she must uncover the reason why her family fell to ruin previously. A rhythmic step sounds as a dark shadow approaches the small girl from behind the shelves. A loud snicker sounds while a green-haired boy points at her and calls her a cursed child. A sudden flinch sounds as Reersha realizes the bullies are the distant relatives of House Arachne. A soft snicker and falter sound while the boy mocks her hair and warns of her curse. A sharp halt sounds as Reersha remembers her past life and her fear of these children. A loud yell sounds while the girl hugs her book and demands that they stop speaking.
The pink-haired girl glares at her tormentors with a newfound sense of courage and defiance. A soft raise sounds as the green-haired boy prepares to use his plant magic against her. A loud whoosh sounds as thick vines grab the girl's ankles while she cries out in pain. A rhythmic step and skitter sound while the bully dares her to free herself with magic. A moment of sudden shock occurs as a large brown beetle appears on the bully's white sleeve. A frantic scramble sounds while the two boys flee in terror from the harmless little bug.
A white-haired boy with red eyes watches them go, holding a glowing light in his hand. The boy is identified as Riskel Arachne, the third son of Lord Fëanor and Reersha's brother. A sudden flinch sounds as the bullies realize the vines and beetle were just Riskel's illusions. A sharp snap sounds while the white-haired boy dismisses his magical creations with a finger flick. The boys watch the floor in shock as the magical plants completely vanish from the room. A loud crash and scramble sound as the boys trip away while Riskel threatens them again. A soft waver sounds while the young Reersha timidly thanks her brother for saving her today. A sudden, sharp halt sounds while Reersha explains she didn't act for gratitude, telling Riskel he needn't thank her. A heavy, deliberate step sounds as Riskel walks past, coldly suggesting that Reersha should have stayed hidden in the annex. Riskel's expression remains stiff as Reersha realizes the weight of the situation, her own eyes widening with realization. The two siblings stand back to back in the dim corridor, a heavy silence hanging between their diverging paths. A swirling mist fills the scene, representing the chaotic emotions and shifting atmosphere within the cold palace walls. Sunlight streams through a tall window, casting long shadows across the ornate floral curtains of the quiet room. Riskel sits alone on the floor, huddled by the bed as he grapples with his internal turmoil and loneliness. His attention is taken by a sudden clack sounding as Riskel startles, asking who is there in the darkened bedroom. Rigador enters the room, identifying himself calmly as he approaches his younger brother's hiding spot. Noting that Riskel met Reersha, Rigador listens as the boy defiantly claims he does not care about his sister. Rigador questions his brother's prideful expression, urging him to set aside his ego and go congratulate Reersha. Riskel's red eyes soften with unshed tears as he struggles to process his brother's gentle advice. A storybook title introduces the small star and the boy, describing a family that once lived in starlight. The text explains that a young boy was considered the member of the family with the faintest magical light. The young boy excitedly asks his pregnant mother when the new star arriving from the sky will finally appear. The mother promises her son that the new star will arrive after just 100 more nights pass. Eager to be a brother, the boy vows to read the star storybooks while he waits, whispering to his mother's womb. Determined to be a good older brother, the boy studies diligently every day while awaiting the star's arrival. On the day the star arrived, tragedy struck as the boy's mother passed away, returning to the sky. Left alone, the boy stopped looking at the stars, spending his days staring out the window in silent grief. The star he had awaited for so long became the symbol of everything he came to hate the most. Riskel scoffs at the idea of congratulating Reersha, asking why he should praise a defective girl like her. A loud, piercing yell sounds while Riskel argues that Reersha caused their family suffering, defending his harsh insults. A sharp, tight clench sounds as Rigador orders Riskel to stop, while the younger boy hides his internal wishes. In a fit of rage, Riskel screams that it would have been better if Reersha had never been born. Riskel stands trembling with fury, his eyes wide and hands clenched as his harsh words echo through the hall. A heavy, dull drop sounds while Reersha's massive rulebook falls to the floor, slipping from her shocked hands. Reersha stands frozen in shock, covering her mouth as she stares at the book abandoned on the ornate carpet. A sudden, abrupt halt sounds as Rigador calls out to Reersha, who stammers in surprise at being discovered. A soft, sorrowful droop sounds while Reersha apologizes, explaining she only came to say she was sorry for upsetting Riskel. Looking at a flickering lamp, Reersha admits her insecurities about her lack of silver hair and late awakening powers. Reersha offers a bittersweet smile, trying to bridge the gap with her brother despite his earlier insults. A heavy, rhythmic thump sounds while Riskel's heart races, his fist clenching as he questions Reersha's confusing words. A loud, echoing shout sounds as Riskel tells her not to smile, insisting she should blame him for his cruelty. Riskel cries out that her kindness makes him look like a villain, his frustration finally boiling over into tears. A flashback of his mother's warm embrace resurfaces, reminding Riskel of a time before his heart became so bitter. Rigador admits he always knew the tragedy wasn't Reersha's fault, calling out to his brother as Riskel listens. A rhythmic, steady drip sounds while Riskel's tears fall, as he admits his guilt only fueled his deep anger. Riskel weeps openly, covering his face with his hand as the burden of his misplaced hatred finally breaks. Reersha watches her brother with deep empathy, her heart breaking for the pain he has carried for so long. The young boy stands alone in his sorrow, the weight of his loneliness finally visible to his sister. A flashback shows young Riskel isolated by a window as his mother died and his father left the castle. The narration notes that he was simply a scared, lonely child who desperately needed someone to blame for his pain. A soft, gentle reach sounds as a small hand extends toward the crying boy, offering a gesture of comfort. Ryersha pulls Riskel into a tight hug, surprising him with her warmth and immediate wordless forgiveness.
Smiling through the hug, Ryersha tells Ryiskel that he must have been very lonely all this time. Recalling her own isolation, Ryersha explains she understands his pain because she felt exactly the same way. Riskel looks down at Risha with tear-filled eyes, stunned by her compassion and the shared bond of loneliness.
Ryersha holds her brother's hands firmly, looking up at him with a heart full of love and acceptance.
A soft, teary sound follows as Riskel gazes at Ryersha, his long-held resentment finally dissolving into a sincere connection.
Ryersha watches her silver-haired brother Riskel cry while their older white-haired brother looks on. The young girl offers a comforting smile while Riskel weeps and wipes away his tears.
A soft sigh sounds as the older white-haired brother closes his eyes in weary resignation.
Ryersha stares with wide, sparkling eyes while holding a light blue portfolio addressed to her. The older brother explains that he asked Ricador to leave the book at her annex so she wouldn't be illiterate. Ryersha is amazed that he created the entire book himself.
A quick ahem sounds from the chibi-styled Riskel as he tries to regain his composure. Ryersha notes the crooked letters, prompting a blushing Riskel to claim he wrote them that way to make them easier for her to read. Hugging the book tightly, the girl gives a radiant smile and asks if he will make her another one. A soft humph sounds as Riskel acts indifferent, promising to do it if he can find the time, despite it being a lot of work. A loud burst sounds as Shona rushes through the door, calling out for Lady Ryersha in a panic.
A sudden pew sounds as the blue-haired woman expresses her immense relief at finally finding the girl.
Ryersha apologizes for wandering to the library, but Shona reveals she heard about the girl's fight with the distant relatives.
Riskel interrupts to explain that the fight was entirely one-sided because the other boys ganged up on his sister.
An ugh sounds as Shona expresses her disbelief that the relatives had the nerve to request a disciplinary hearing. The blue-haired woman somberly confirms that the hearing is indeed moving forward. The narration states that the distant relatives have formally requested that Lady Ryersha be summoned for a disciplinary hearing. Ryersha and Riskel stand together in a dark, ominous atmosphere, looking up with expressions of mounting dread. A loud slam sounds as a hand strikes a table, and a voice furiously accuses someone of seeing their child bleeding. Marquis Crendor yells at the assembly, arguing that children are forbidden from using powers on each other and accusing the Duke of trying to cover for his granddaughter. A yell sounds as an elder tries to calm Marquess Crendor, but the green-haired man insists that the facts must be verified through a formal hearing. A soft sigh sounds as Duke Archmond states that he will comply if the majority of the elders agree to the trial. A quick whip sounds as Marquis Crendor argues that while they are loyal to the house, they must protect their own rights. A sudden glance occurs as the other elders around the table voiced their agreement with the Marquis's demand. The Duke officially declares that a disciplinary hearing will be held, stating he will not make an exception even for his own granddaughter. A dark smirk plays on the face of Marquis Crendor as the Duke promises that Ryersha will be given a fair trial. A scale of justice hangs beneath a crest, noting that the head of the family must prioritize neutrality above all else. Silhouettes of the family members appear as the narration explains that the Duke cannot defend direct descendants if balance is to be maintained. An ornate silver frame surrounds the warning that the distant relatives will abandon House Arachne if the Duke fails to remain impartial. The scene shifts as the heavy weight of the impending trial looms over the family. A soft snicker sounds while Marquis Crendor mocks the Duke, thinking that without his son to defend the main family, the Archmond patriarch is a toothless tiger. A dark thought manifests, suggesting that the girl must be dealt with before Lord Fëanor can return from the border. The grand hearing begins in a massive hall, with the Duke presiding over the table of elders and the two children. A rhythmic step sounds as Marquis Crendor leads Ebel forward, while Ryersha walks toward her own designated seat. A close-up reveals the young girl's trembling eyes as she faces the intimidating assembly alone. Shona explains that only the summoned person and a blood-related guardian are permitted to be present during the proceedings. The blue-haired woman realizes with worry that the relatives deliberately summoned Ryersha to isolate her from her family's support. A sharp clench sounds as Riskel grits his teeth in frustration, angry because he was the one who actually used magic to save her. A quiet mutter sounds while Shona wishes Lord Fëanor were present to protect his daughter from this injustice. Ryersha reassures her worried companion, bravely stating that she will face the hearing by herself. Standing amidst a background of flowers, the girl tells Shona not to worry because she has done nothing wrong. Ryersha bolsters her own courage, repeating to herself that she isn't scared because of her innocence. The small pink-haired girl stands with a determined expression, ready to face her accusers. Dark thorns surround the image of the Duke as Ryersha wonders if her grandfather will truly believe her side of the story. A sharp point sounds as Ebel Crendor points an accusing finger, shouting that the girl used her power on him.
The green-haired boy lies to the elders, claiming Reersha wanted to test her awakened power on him and that he got hurt while trying to escape.
Reersha shouts back in protest, declaring that Ebel was the one who used his magic first.
A sharp halt sounds as the girl suddenly stops her defense, realizing that telling the full truth might get Riskel in trouble. Marquis Crendor mocks her silence and demands that Lady Reersha offer a heartfelt apology to his son.
A soft clench sounds as Reersha grips her dress while the elders suggest they will let the matter slide if she simply apologizes.
A sharp tisk sounds as the girl refuses to apologize, causing Marquis Crendor to frostily accuse her of looking down on them. Marquis Crendor observes that Reersha is being more than just stubborn, as her upbringing as a direct descendant has clearly spoiled her. A dark smirk crosses Marquis Crendor's face as he demands that the girl be locked away in the annex again. A sudden, loud burst sounds as the heavy doors of the hearing hall are kicked open with immense force. The room falls into a stunned silence as a voice tells the assembly to wait for just a moment. The white-haired Ferner Arachne, son of the Duke, finally returns and makes a grand entrance into the trial. Reersha watches her father with wide, sparkling eyes, wondering how he managed to return home from the border so quickly.
A rhythmic step sounds while Lord Ferner walks forward, questioning how an adult can call this a fair trial.
A sudden falter sounds as Marquis Crendor stutters in surprise at the Lord's return while Fernor prepares to speak. The white-haired man stands protectively over his daughter, casting a powerful shadow over the intimidators in the room. Fernor challenges the council, stating that if Reersha truly used magic, then Ebel should know exactly what her power is. A frantic stutter sounds while the green-haired boy fails to describe the girl's power when confronted by the Lord. Lord Fernor mocks Marquis Crendor for requesting a formal hearing without even verifying the basic facts of the incident. A rhythmic step sounds as Rosinante enters, presenting several large books containing records of Reersha's 4 years in the annex. A sharp creak sounds while Duke Archmond reacts with horror to the reports of his granddaughter's starvation and neglect. A sudden jolt sounds as the Duke furiously demands to know why the budget he allocated was never used properly. Marquis Crendor tries to claim this was standard management, but Fernor accuses him of knowingly neglecting a direct descendant. Lord Fernor glares with cold crimson eyes, calling out to the Duke to address the crimes committed by their relative. A loud shout sounds while Lord Fernor demands that Marquis Crendor be held accountable for his personal greed and neglect. The Duke agrees and officially strips Marquis Crendor of his position as an elder of the noble house Arachne.
A heavy, rhythmic da-dun sounds as the Duke's face contorts with a terrifying level of rage toward the traitor.
The tension in the room begins to dissipate as the focus shifts back to the family's internal affairs. A rhythmic step sounds while Shona runs toward the pink-haired girl, expressing her relief that the hearing is over. A soft waver sounds while the girl thanks her companion, though she remains distracted by her father's unexpected presence. A rhythmic step sounds as Lord Ferner walks past them, his tall stature and regal uniform commanding the entire hallway. Reersha looks up at the white-haired man with a mixture of awe and nervousness, quietly greeting him as her father. A soft fidget sounds while the girl grips her dress, feeling guilty because she believes her father was exiled. A sudden, gentle reach sounds as the tall man extends his hand toward his small, trembling daughter in the hall. Surrounded by a background of flowers, Lord Fernor pulls Reersha into a tight, warm hug for the first time. The pink-haired girl is left speechless and wide-eyed as she experiences the unfamiliar embrace of her father's strong arms. Lord Fernor closes his eyes and smiles softly, cherishing the moment of being reunited with his daughter after so long. Reersha leans into her father's chest, feeling a sense of security and belonging that she never knew in her past. Looking down with a gentle expression, the Lord says he wants to see just how much she has grown. A confused "huh" sounds from the chibi-styled Fernor when he realizes that his daughter has suddenly vanished from his arms. A soft cower sounds as Reersha hides behind Shona, prompting her father to ask when she moved over there. A soft peak sounds as Rosinante jokes that the young lady simply feels a little shy around her returning father. The chibi girl blushes and hides her face, whispering an apology to her father for her sudden bout of shyness. The scene shifts to the bedroom where a voice asks if she feels uncomfortable around the white-haired lord. A soft glum sounds while Reersha sits on her bed, admitting that her long-awaited reunion feels a bit awkward. Shona reassures the girl, explaining that being apart for so long makes it natural to need time to reconnect. The blue-haired woman suggests that Reersha should try making a special gift to help bridge the distance between them. The pink-haired girl tilts her head in curiosity, wondering what kind of gift would be appropriate for her father. Standing amidst blooming flowers, Reersha begins to brainstorm ideas for something she can create with her own small hands. Reersha asks if a small gift would be acceptable, and Shona excitedly promises that her father will love anything.
A soft pat sounds as Reisha holds a small hand-sewn pink bunny, finalizing her choice for the perfect gift.
Duke Archmond reflects on his past failures, admitting he was too preoccupied with family duty to be a good grandfather. Lord Fernor listens to his father's confession with a neutral expression, acknowledging the weight of the old man's deep regret.
The white-haired lord states that Reersha is the one who deserves the apology, and the Duke solemnly agrees with him.
Looking over documents, Fernor notes that the upcoming crowning ceremony is a perfect chance to announce his official return.
The Lord warns that the current emperor is envious of their power and might react poorly to their public appearance.
Fernor insists that regardless of the risk of misunderstanding, the family must re-enter central politics to protect their future interests. The green-haired Marquis Crendor plots, noting that distant relatives are secretly contacting the imperial family. Fernor declares his firm intention to protect Reersha from the brewing storm of political conflict. A curious question about a crowning ceremony hangs in the air against the bright sky.
The sun shines brightly over the massive, ornate mansion of the powerful noble Arachne family.
Fernor mocks the emperor for throwing a fancy birthday party, while Rosinante praises the lord's civility.
The blonde-haired man expresses worry that the lord might lose his temper in front of his grace.
A chibi-styled Fernor is visibly annoyed, while Rosinante humorously claims his tongue slipped during their conversation. Slightly touching his hair, the white-haired man sighs about the massive workload after his long absence. A cheerful burst of music sounds, while hands present a brightly decorated pink book to the lord. Fernor stares in disbelief as Rosinante presents him with a pink parenting manual to help him.
A sharp flip sounds while Rosinante explains that Reersha must be treated with delicate, gentle care.
Fernor imagines himself being overly sweet, offering strawberry-flavored medicine to his darling little princess in pink. A heavy dun sounds while Fernor stares at the book, wishing he were back on the battlefield. The adorable pink-haired girl stands surrounded by flowers, blissfully unaware of her father's secret inner struggle. A soft pft sounds as Rosinante laughs while Fernor awkwardly addresses his daughter as his little princess. Reersha tilts her head in confusion, wondering why her father is suddenly calling her such a name.
Fernor asks the girl if she would like to go somewhere with him right at this moment.
The white-haired man smiles softly to himself, finding his daughter's shy reaction to be quite endearing. A bright cluster of ripe oranges hangs from the branches of a tree in the palace gardens. Fernor and Reersha sit together on an ornate boat floating peacefully across a sparkling clear lake.
The boat drifts under the soft light reflecting off the shimmering water in the peaceful royal garden.
A soft ahem sounds while the white-haired man hesitates, trying to follow the advice from the manual. The young girl holds out a simple bracelet made of woven clover leaves and small white flowers. Fernor asks if Reersha made the flower bracelet herself, and the girl shyly confirms that she did. A soft smile plays on Fernor's face as he looks at the handmade flower gift with warmth. The pink-haired girl asks if she should put it on him, her eyes filled with hopeful expectation.
Fernor quickly agrees to her request, wanting her to know how much he truly appreciates her effort.
The girl carefully places the handmade clover bracelet around her father's large and strong wrist.
Fernor raises his hand with a small smile, asking his young daughter if the flowers suit him.
Reersha beams with pure joy, excitedly telling her father that he looks absolutely great with the gift.
Fernor watches her with a contented gaze, noticing that his daughter has finally started to relax a bit.
Fernor mentions that her eldest brother will be coming home soon, even if she doesn't remember him. The boat drifts along the current, carrying the father and daughter through the beautiful, serene garden. Reisha looks surprised, repeating her father's mention of her very first upcoming birthday party with wide eyes.
A dark thought appears as Reersha remembers that her mother died on the day she was born.
Fernor asks what she means, noticing the sudden change in his young daughter's melancholic facial expression.
Reersha looks down sadly, admitting she believes her mother died because of her, since everyone said so.
A flashback reveals the cruel rumors that forced a young Reersha to play alone in the shadows. The pink-haired girl reflects on her lonely past, having never received a cake or birthday wishes before. Tears well up in Reisha's eyes as the weight of her long-held guilt and loneliness finally surfaces. The white-haired lord leans down and pulls his small daughter into a tight and protective hug. Looking at her with intense love, Fernor tells Reersha that her birth was a true blessing. An image of Reisha's mother appears as the father remembers the deep love they shared for her. Fernor tells her never to think such things again, reinforcing that she is his precious, loved daughter. The white-haired lord holds his small daughter tightly, vowing to never let her feel such pain again. The boat passes under the shade of the trees, a symbol of the new safety she found. A soft rustle sounds from the bushes as someone watches the father and daughter from a distance. A sharp stare sounds as chibi-styled Riskel peeks through the leaves with a very curious expression. A quiet shh sounds as the standing boy asks Riskel what he is doing in the bushes. A soft rustle sounds while Riskel explains that their father and Reersha are currently on a date.
Older brother watches Fernor and Reersha on the boat, wondering when they became so close. Chibi Riskel feels envious, admitting he wants to pet his sister's head and stick to his father too.
The older brother sighs and suggests they leave the pair alone, while Reersha's voice asks her father about his gift. A soft bubble appears as Fernor warmly confirms his love for the gift. Lord Fernor looks down at his daughter, calling her his precious girl while wearing her handmade clover bracelet. A quick push sounds as the silver-haired brother shoves Riskel's head back into the bushes to keep them hidden. Riskel stares longingly through the leaves, internally shouting that he wants a gift from his sister as well. A sudden spring sounds as Riskel leaps out, determined to ask for a handmade bracelet of his own. A sharp, startled sounds while Fernor and Reersha jump in surprise at the boy's sudden appearance.
The silver-haired older brother holds a struggling Chibi Riskel by the collar like a tiny, disobedient kitten. A soft scramble sounds as the older brother claims they were passing by, but Riskel demands his own flower bracelet. Reersha looks dazed as her brothers bicker, with Riskel encouraging the older boy to just ask her for one.
A cheerful hee-hee sounds while Reersha giggles at her brother's antics.
Riskel reacts with pure excitement and joy when he realizes his request might actually be granted.
A gentle pat sounds as Fernor suggests they all make flower bracelets together as a family. The pink-haired girl smiles brightly, her eyes sparkling with happiness at the inclusive plan. The two white-haired brothers watch from a distance as the boat continues its peaceful journey.
A wide view shows the ornate boat floating serenely on the sparkling lake under the bright sun.
A flashback shows a lonely Reersha hugging a doll next to a drawing, remembering how much she craved affection. The pink-haired girl radiates pure joy, her past loneliness replaced by the warmth of her family. The boat drifts peacefully along the water, surrounded by falling petals and the beauty of the garden. The scene shifts to the sprawling palace gardens filled with tiered fountains and perfectly manicured hedges. A sharp tisk-tisk sounds while Duke Archmund critiques the garden's maintenance, planning to replace the gardener. A sudden pause sounds as the elderly Duke stops in his tracks, noticing his son approaching. Fernor walks through the garden holding fresh pink flowers, proudly displaying the clover bracelet on his wrist. Duke Archmund stares in confusion, wondering why a grown man and powerful lord is wearing a flimsy flower bracelet. Fernor greets his father, asking if he is on a stroll, and the Duke confirms it is a nice afternoon. A loud ahem sounds while the Duke scolds Fernor for lacking dignity by wearing such a childish accessory. A soft peek sounds as Reersha hides behind her father, shyly admitting she was the one who made the gift. A soft teary sounds while the pink-haired girl looks down sadly, explaining it was a special gift for her father.
A sudden halt sounds as the Duke is struck with intense guilt and shock upon hearing the truth.
Fernor smirks while patting Reersha's head, asking how his father could scold him for wearing his daughter's hard work. A heavy, shocked sounds as the Duke faces a massive crisis, while Fernor notes his father's cold heart. The moon shines brightly over the towers of the massive castle as night falls over the capital.
A rhythmic step sounds as a soldier approaches the blonde empress, who waits in her dark red gown.
The blonde woman turns slightly, acknowledging the presence of her visitor with a cool and regal gaze.
A soft glance sounds as Residian Arachne, Fernor's eldest son, kneels before the Empress in his green uniform.
Residian looks up with a stoic expression, his striking red eyes reflecting a cold and focused intensity.
The Empress mentions she heard good news about his family, asking if he is aware of the recent developments. A sharp flinch sounds when the Empress reveals that his sister, Reersha, has finally awakened her powers. The blonde woman smiles dangerously, asking Residian if he has considered the political implications of his sister's awakening. Residian remains calm, stating that nothing will happen because his sister simply did what was expected of her. The Empress questions his lack of concern, but Residian maintains his dismissive stance regarding his family's affairs. A quick whip sounds while the Empress tilts Residian's chin up, expressing her approval of his cold answer. The Empress dismisses him for his training, noting that the upcoming crowning ceremony will be a family reunion. A rhythmic step sounds as Residian turns and begins to walk out of the Empress's private chambers. A sudden pause sounds as the Empress calls out to Residian just before he can reach the door. The Empress warns him not to forget her long-standing protection of his family while she looks out the window. A soft purse sounds as Residian acknowledges her words with a curt and obedient response. Residian walks away with a dark expression, while the Empress watches him leave, nursing her own secret plans. Fernor notes his father's cold heart, leaving the Duke facing his greatest life crisis. A sharp cough sounds as the Duke changes his mind, complimenting the flower bracelet. Kneeling before her, the Duke asks Reersha to make a flower accessory for him too.
A heavy gulp sounds while the pink-haired Ryersha stares at her grandfather in surprise. Ryersha reflects on her past fear of her grandfather, finding him less scary now. A soft sigh sounds while the Duke thanks Ryersha as she begins her work. Small hands carefully weave yellow flowers into a crown for the elderly Duke's head. Archman wears the handmade flower crown with a soft expression while sparkles surround him. A plate of strawberry treats sits on the table as an upcoming party is mentioned. Fernor and Archmon discuss travel plans to the capital while Ryersha sits between them. A sudden perk sounds as Ryersha's ears pop up, hearing about the imperial party.
Risha reflects on the capital's rumors and finding clues to protect her family's future.
A soft fidget sounds while Ryersha asks her father if she can go along. Ryersha expresses her desire to shop for dresses and make friends at the capital. Duke Archman crosses his arms and flatly denies Ryersha's request to go to the capital. Archman explains that a child cannot leave the territory, dismissing her request to travel. A loud yell sounds as the Duke repeats his refusal, causing a sudden startle. Fernor and Ryersha sit in stunned silence as the Duke towers over the table.
A soft tremble sounds as Fernor scolds his father for scaring the crying young girl.
A sudden halt sounds as the Duke freezes, noticing his granddaughter's terrified and tearful face. A heavy shut sounds while the Duke apologizes and dismisses them from his presence. The elderly Duke stands alone by the tall window, silhouetted against the bright palace light. Fernor asks the black-haired Oberon if he was watching their interaction from the doorway. A soft clack sounds as the Duke admits his neglect but insists on following rules. Archmont holds a portrait, warning that a single exception can weaken the entire family. The scene shifts to a dark atmosphere representing the Duke's troubled past as heir. Archmont reflects on his consuming duty as the family's future head during his youth. Toppled chess pieces represent the Duke's former inability to be himself due to family duty. A heavy step sounds as a brown-haired woman approaches the young Archmont in the garden. The woman comments on his gruff personality, questioning the rumors of the Northern Duke. With a confident smile, she vows to make the young Duke fall in love soon. A silent gape sounds while the young Archman stares in stunned confusion at the bold woman. Archman reflects on how his cold perspective changed the moment he met his future wife. The woman playfully asks if the Duke's heavy red cloak is too burdensome to wear. A close-up reveals his intense red eyes as she offers to carry his heavy burden. The brown-haired woman smiles brightly while wearing his heavy red cloak in the falling leaves. Archman's narration continues to a winter when his wife was pregnant with their son, Fernor.
A view of the snowy palace appears as he recalls an expedition to hunt beasts.
A sharp slash and plop sound as Archman slays a magic beast in the snow. A heavy whew sounds as the young Duke rests, noting the endless wave of beasts. A sudden rush sounds while a soldier delivers an urgent message regarding the Duchess's health. A heavy thump sounds as Archman's face pales, hearing his wife is in critical condition. A quick gallop sounds while the Duke abandons his military duty to race back home. A close-up of their hands shows the Duke's desperation to hold on to his dying wife. The Duchess tells Archmon that she loved his devotion to the family above all else. Crying softly, the woman expresses her happiness that he is finally looking only at her. The brown-haired woman passes away, leaving Fernor behind in the Duke's care. Archmond explains that abandoning his post led to massive casualties and chaos within the Knights. Standing in the snow, the Duke reflects on the hard lesson he learned regarding duty.
The Duke realizes he can never let personal emotions sway his leadership decisions again.
A single tear falls into the Duke's palm as he remembers his late wife's sacrifice. Behind a framed portrait, the Duke admits he only broke the rules for Ryersha's sake. With a heavy shut, the elderly man vows to never let family rules be broken again. A rhythmic knock sounds while Oberon watches the Duke, who questions the identity of the late visitor.
Ryersha stands at the door, struggling to hold a massive, ancient-looking brown leather rulebook.
The pink-haired girl excitedly presents the family rulebook to her surprised grandfather for inspection.
The text reveals that only those who master their powers may leave the Arachne territory borders.
Ryersha proposes that she can go to the capital if she masters her power immediately.
The young girl holds up 3 fingers, boldly asking for 3 days to complete her training.
Radiating confidence, Ryersha declares her certainty in mastering her magical abilities within the short deadline. A close-up shows the Duke's skeptical expression as he considers the child's ambitious mastery proposal.
A sharp shut sounds while the Duke closes the book, accepting her 3-day training challenge.
The Duke sets a harsh condition, banning her from the capital until adulthood if she fails. A bright brighten sounds as Ryersha reacts with pure joy at the chance to prove herself. A portrait of the brown-haired Duchess glows softly, seemingly watching over the family's newest generation. Sona, the blue-haired knight, appears with a stoic expression, ready for a private family interview.
Ryersha nods vigorously while explaining the deal she struck with her grandfather to the blue-haired woman.
Sona suggests seeking her father's guidance, but the girl wants her mastery to be a surprise. Curious about her mentors, Reersha asks Sona to demonstrate her own unique magical family power.
A soft swish sounds while Sona transforms into a blonde woman, revealing her shapeshifting ability. Sparkles surround the pink-haired girl as she watches the incredible transformation with wide, amazed eyes. A flashback shows Sona's youth, where her mischief led to the sudden awakening of her powers.
Reersha finds the story surprising as Sona appears perfectly angelic and composed to her now.
Sona explains that powers reflect one's heart, reminding Reersha of her lonely past seeking warmth.
The young girl looks deep in thought, processing how her internal desires shaped her unique magic.
Reersha wonders if her ability to create bubbles stems from a simple wish to play. Risco lies lazily on a couch, holding a book while preparing for his own interview.
Reersha feels discouraged by Riskel's claim of being a natural-born master from the moment of birth.
A sharp shut sounds while Riskel closes his book, explaining the importance of channeling mana.
Sona's stylish boots are shown as she asks Reersha about her very first power awakening experience. A memory shows the eldest brother, Ricador, protecting a younger Reersha from a fierce bear monster. Reersha recalls hugging her brother in terror, which triggered the first manifestation of her protective magic.
Riskel ponders the bear incident, trying to find a way to help his sister train better. A wide grin spreads across Riskel's face as he instructs Reersha to close her eyes tight. A soft blink sounds as the pink-haired girl opens her eyes, following her brother's training instructions.
A loud gra sounds while a terrifying mechanical bear puppet drops down, scaring the poor girl.
A sudden whip sounds as Reersha's fear triggers a hiccup and a wild burst of light. Mana flickers and sparks around the girl's small hand as she struggles to maintain magical control. Riskel scolds his sister for her lack of concentration as she looks on with a sweat drop. A soft chwip sounds while the scary bear puppet dissolves into a cloud of sparkling magical dust.
Riskel observes that Reersha's mana is flowing chaotically, possibly due to her persistent nervous hiccups.
A playful smirk appears on Riskel's face as he prepares to tease his struggling little sister. A loud ding sounds while Riskel calls her an idiot, leaving Reersha dazed and spinning. A small hand reaches out towards the sun in the garden, signaling a new training attempt. Reersha stands alone in the palace garden, looking determined to overcome her current magical limitations.
The girl squeezes her eyes shut, concentrating all her effort on manifesting her power once more.
A loud dud-dun sounds while the blonde Sona presents a massive stack of complex study books.
A rhythmic tremble sounds as Reersha hides, admitting that the stoic Oberon is simply too frightening. Looking glum, the girl worries that she is running out of time to master her magic.
A sudden rustle sounds as a white-haired man approaches, asking the lonely girl what she is doing.
Reersha radiates determination with sparkling eyes, ready to begin her intense training session.
A voice calls out for Ricador as apple blossoms bloom against a clear sky. A quick step sounds while the silver-haired Ricador approaches with a calm, attentive expression. Ricador voices concern that Reersha is sick, but she quickly denies it while continuing her training. Ricador reaches out, gently placing his large hand over Reersha's tiny one to offer guidance. Kneeling behind his sister, Ricador instructs Reersha to perceive mana as a natural extension of herself. A poetic comparison follows, likening the flow of internal energy to the wind fluttering through hair. Ricador guides Reersha's hands, explaining that mana is an ever-present force within the Arachne family lineage. Squeezing her eyes shut, the young girl focuses all her concentration on sensing the mana.
Reersha stands centered in a halo of light, channeling her inner strength with pure focus. A bright glow emanates while Reersha's bubbles drift toward the maids as a sudden sparkle sounds.
The shimmering orbs continue to rise, catching the attention of the palace guards standing on duty.
Floating bubbles fill the grand hall, drifting past Duke Archmont and the observant, black-haired Oberon.
Oberon watches the mysterious light with an intense gaze, sensing the sudden surge of incredible power. A sharp ouch sounds while Reersha falls back onto the grass, exhausted by her magical exertion. Ricador helps his sister up as she breathlessly asks if her magical attempt was a success. A stunned silence follows as Ricador gazes at Reersha, completely overwhelmed by her natural talent.
Ricador thinks that calling her attempt a success would be a massive understatement of her power.
A rhythmic blub and rumble sound while Ricador admits he has never seen such overwhelming magical strength.